Welcome to HMG Live, a production of HMG Strategy, your global partner helping you reinvent the future of work. Home to the HMG Marketplace, a fast, easy, safe, and efficient way to connect with the right vendors for your technology needs.
We can't be together at these events, right? But I think the next best thing is being able to connect through the marketplace.
And now, a warm welcome to today's host, Lead Principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to the 2020 New York Ciso Executive Leadership Summit. I'm Hunter Muller, Lead Principal of HMG Strategy. My team and I are truly delighted to be here with you today. I think we have a really excellent program. Please stay with us right to the end. Ed Amoroso will be with us here at the very end in a one-on-one interview with me, looking to uncover some pearls of wisdom, some secrets to success, and certainly we'll be discussing how to lean in as a CISO, lean in and lead courageously into the C-suite, courageously into the boardroom, and courageously into the line of business. So the topic today, learning from the past and present to protect and reshape the future of business. Never before has there been a more difficult time to be a tech leader, a difficult time to be a CISO, as the threat landscape just 8-9 months ago dramatically changed, dramatically increased, dramatically became a different game for all of us. And we're going to discuss that in detail with world-class presenters today and world-class panels. So really looking forward to it. We couldn't do what we do at HMG without our true appreciation for world-class partners and sponsors. Our national partner, Darktrace, early on, Darktrace was a founding partner of the HMG Marketplace. Truly appreciate Darktrace stepping up and helping support the launch of the Marketplace. Our partner, Duo Security, Okta, and Zoom. So please, when they reach out to you, take a meeting. 20 minutes, you'll be supporting the network, you'll be supporting HMG Strategy, and you'll be supporting us to be able to come back in 3, 6, 9, 12 months to do this once again with you. It's keeping you connected in these really interesting times. Hey, a big shout out to Mark Taylor. Mark is the CEO of CIM International. Mark and I have been partnering together for over a year. I've been a CIM member for over 20, a board member on CIM locally for over 20 years. It's a great organization. And Mark's coming in from Austin today. Mark, great to see you.
Hey, great to see you too, Hunter. A great schedule you guys have got set up for the day. Great agenda, and looking forward to it. The community there in the metro, in the city, has built the chapter has built a great community of leaders, Hunter, and I know you've been connected with them for many, many years, and they greatly appreciate the investment that you've made in helping them grow and be connected in the center of the universe that New York City is. So thanks again for continuing all your investment. And I would encourage everyone here to check out the local New York Metro chapter. The link will be into the chat channel, and we look forward to seeing you guys there and as well throughout the day. Thanks, Hunter.
Hey, Mark, New York Metro CIM's been a partner from day one with HMG, now going on 14 years. We held our first summit in 2008 in New York City alongside the New York Metro CIM chapter. How many other chapters do you have across North America, and what's new?
Yeah, Hunter, there's 40 chapters across the country, and it's from coast to coast. Great chapters throughout the country. And actually, right just next week, matter of fact, Hunter, and thank you for your participation in this, we have our STEM Foundation, where we invest over $1.5 million a year into STEM education around the country. So thank you for supporting that event. We hope that all you guys will look out for that. Check us out on our STEMnet homepage, and you'll see the details there.
Yeah, that's coming up next Friday, right? Friday
yeah,
afternoon?
That's right. Just a week away. The next week is our Give Back Week. All across the country, chapters are doing local projects with the STEM communities in each city, and we'll be our Friday event next week will be sort of the capstone.
And I think I'm introducing Scott McNeely, the founder of Sun Microsystems.
You are, yeah. We got some great voices. Scott McNeely will be there. We'll also have the founder from Square and a few other great voices in the community as well, and in the philanthropic efforts these days. So we're really looking forward to it. And the great auction as well. If anybody wants to meet up with a few CIOs, we're auctioning off a few CIO meetings, the Fortune 500 CIOs. So drop by and take a look at that too.
Awesome, great to see you, Mark. Thanks so much.
You bet.
Hey, look, we encourage you to take this survey. Zendesk, a great partner of ours for a long, long time, creating a culture of empathy in uncertain ways. It's in the chat bar. If you click on it, you can complete the survey. And we're closing out here, I think, at the end of the month. The deadline is by November 1st. If you fill out the survey, we'll send back a copy of the report, Creating a Culture of Empathy in Uncertain Times. So again, the marketplace is new for us, about 2-3 months into it. It's a great initiative around helping connect top tier CIOs, CTOs, and CISOs to our A1 list of partners that have helped launch this. Now, guys, realize this. We have found some of the top technology partners, not only further down the road in terms of being developed 500 million to $1 billion or more, but some very early stage companies that are in the marketplace. You can go click on HMG on the homepage marketplace and go find out, learn more, read their white papers, listen to some videos, click to get a meeting. It's a pretty exciting time. So Appian, Ariaka, Darktrace, Forescout, Globant, Obsidian, PagerDuty, Sonatype, Tanium, as well as Tessian. So check it out. It's really the future of the way we're going to look at, review, and consume new enterprise solutions and services through the HMG marketplace. So help us with a little pop-up survey here so we can refine the marketplace. What is your organization's specific technology need right now? If you could fill it out and hit submit, that would be super. Appreciate it. Next up, Gary Sorrentino. Gary, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Hunter. Thanks for having me. Always great to be here.
Sorry about that. We had a missing slide in there.
That's all right.
It even happens to folks on CNN and on Fox News. So we're right there in the middle of it all. So, hey, give us an update, Gary. I mean, you guys have been through such an amazing time of innovation at Zoom, and what an incredible company you're so fortunate to be part of, and helping us all really stay connected in some really trying times.
Yeah, so it's been interesting 7 months, I guess, and we've had some interesting conversations. I think the newest thing to what we rolled out was last Monday, we rolled out this past Monday, 5.4, which includes end-to-end encryption, which was one of the promises from our 90-day journey. This is a CISO crowd, so they all know how end-to-end runs, but primarily we changed the way we distribute keys. So now instead of Zoom servers distributing keys, now the actual host distribute keys. So that was a big move forward. It was a technical release that went out. So for those who haven't downloaded 5.4, and I think today 5.4.1 came out, they should download it and start to use it and figure out where they can apply it. Like everything else with end-to-end, you're going to lose a little bit of functionality, and we're coming out with multiple phases, but this was a great first step for us. It still uses that same GCM encryption that we use everywhere else. So I think that's something people should look forward to. And then the second thing is, as we're moving forward into this future of work, and we've had this conversation a couple of times, we're moving towards that new hybrid. There's no way around, we're not moving towards a hybrid environment. And so Zoom released, we had our famous Zoomtopia last week, I think it was, or the week before. It's kind of like a blur. And we really worked on things like, when people return to work, why not a virtual receptionist? Why not, when you walk into a conference room, you can say, I don't know, Zoom on, right? And you don't have to touch the device. Things like, why can't we start integrating things like Alexa and other IoTs to start devices? And so there's so many things that we're doing. Maybe like smart galleries are coming out. One of the things we've talked about in the past is, when people go into this hybrid mode, we're going to have, like the other day I talked to you, there are people in your office and then there are people not in your office. Well, if there's 3 people in a conference room by you and I'm not there, I might be a second-class person because I'm not in the room. But what if we could take the 3 people in the room plus myself and break us all into little boxes? So we're all separate boxes, just like we're all home. I think we realized that the world did really well when everybody was on site, and the world did really well when everybody was home. And this hybrid has us a little bit, how are we going to go forward in a hybrid environment?
It's an interesting time, right? So when you think about, what are some recommendations for CISOs to be more connected to the business, more connected to their peers, more connected to the C-suite?
Your survey had a word that I want to bring in, and it was about empathy, right? I think today, and for my CISO friends and colleagues, a lot of people call us Dr. No. And traditionally we were where someone went to get past a hurdle, the hurdle that said, hey, can I use this software? It was more about an approval level than it was about a partnership. And I think today that the modern CISO is changing. I think the modern CISO is now in the boardroom. I think we want to stay there. I really do think that we need to be looked at as solution providers. It's not about saying, no, you can't use. It's about saying, let's figure out a way. And so I really do think that the role has changed. I hope all of our colleagues change the same way. But I think the real role today is we are moving into a hybrid world. And the CISOs all came to the challenge when we moved people home. There were a lot of questions those first couple of weekends. What can people do home? How can people do things home? But now we're moving to a hybrid. And I think that now this is really where we're going to take our place at the table and we're going to be a leading force. I mean, think about it, Hunter. If you're 50% at work and 50% not at work, are you two people, two cyber policies? What do I do when I'm at work? So I think this is a really great time. I've talked about it's the greatest time to be in technology, but I really think that the CISO function is going to be so key as we enter this hybrid phase.
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's all about a mindset, right? Isn't it, Gary, of being positive, open, and facilitating an enterprise of agility in terms of thought, right? And how do you dial into your team? Because at the end of the day, a CISO can't be successful without really bringing everyone along the enterprise-wide security journey, right?
I agree. This is the best time for the CISO. If you don't understand the business you support, a lot of them understand the technology and a lot of them understand the security. You really have to understand the business and figure out as a business person, how can you help these people now? Because it's not about doing things wrong. People just want to stay productive, right? And we've been thrown into an environment that for years we've been used to doing things at work and, the occasional snow day. And now we're living the snow day for 7 months. And now we're going to go forward in a partial BCP. So we're going to have people at work, people not at work, who lives close, who doesn't live close. Some people are talking about hubs. Some companies like Zoom might not go back until next September. Some companies have announced people never have to come back. And so you're right. I think the mindset has to change, and it can't be about what you can't do. It has to really be about what we can do. And if we get to a point where it blocks productivity, how do we get around it? How do we solve it? It's more of a leaning forward, bringing solutions to the table mindset now. And I think you're correct. I think it's the mindset has to change.
We've been working with CIOs for over 30 years and CISOs for about 5 or so or more. It's all around leaning in and leading and helping the organization reinvent now and reimagine the go-to-market. And how can you have that kind of creativity in a culture if the answer is no?
Exactly. Well, and it's also now about leading your staff, because people will follow the leader of the staff. And if you're a CISO in the no mode, right, your staff will follow that. But if your staff sees you searching, learning, right? I mean, today, this is Cyber Month, right? And so we've been teaching people all month about how to be better at cyber, right? And we know it's training and we know it's education, we know it's testing, but it's also about, I can tell you, last Cyber Month, last year, I probably didn't teach about securing your video call. Yet this year, besides the normal, right, it's also adding. Now you have to learn about how do you secure your video call? How do you learn how to use the products that we're using? And as we move forward, you're absolutely right. How do we get our groups, the CISO groups, pointed in the right direction so we all have thought leadership?
Interesting times, right? You also have a CISO security council, don't you?
Yeah, in April, Zoom put together the Zoom CISO Council, and right now it consists of about 35 of some of the premier CISOs in the world across 10 different industries. And we kind of keep it pretty balanced. We try to make sure that everybody's represented. Their number one job is voice of the client. That is their number one job. Today, when we went into this pandemic, some rules got bent. I don't want to say broken, but in different industries, we had to bend some rules because people were working from home. And it could be that, hey, I can't trade from home because it's not a known location, but I can now because the known location is empty. And so they have helped us in a way of bringing these different industry changes through the pandemic to us. They've also challenged us on areas that we needed to focus on. Like as we're going back to work, they're teaching us about things like you need to change some things, right? We need you to be able to count people in a conference room, because if it's a 6-person conference room and we've deemed only 3 people, we can't walk around and count noses. Why can't Zoom do something like that? And so we're looking at working at some sort of counting, so we know that, hey, this room is over capacity. How do we make the screen red, or things like that? And so we've been working with them to figure out what are some of the common denominators, but what are some of the industry specific denominators that we need to partner with them. And it's been my pleasure and honor to be the chairman of that CISO council.
Awesome. Hey, Gary, what does winning look like in this environment as a world-class CISO? Your thoughts on, you've had some interesting background, but for a CISO in this environment, what does winning look like?
I think winning is finding that balance between how do we keep things secure, and we have to do some of that in the background. How do we keep our clients, and I don't mean external clients, but maybe your internal clients, engaged? How do we keep people informed? Because these things will change rapidly. We went home with no plan. It was Friday, go home, right? So there was no time. But as we go back, right, we have to now keep our clients and our employees engaged. I think we have to keep them successfully secure somehow. And I think we need to be ahead of them, understand the business, understand what they're going to need next, and be there before they ask the question. So I think the CISO of winning is the person that we're going to look to as a thought leader to say, wait a second, he's already thinking about tomorrow's plan for a problem I don't even have today. And I think that's really, if I was a full-time CISO, I would say that's how I'm winning. I understand the business, I understand the landscape, and I'm thinking beyond and being there. By the time people get to me, I'm already telling them we're already working on a solution. I think that is winning today.
Sounds great. And it's all about people and relationships, right?
Today it's about building up relationships. Today, unfortunately, since we're not together, building up that social capital, it's hard. It's hard. And I think that the CISOs today need to make sure that they're in front of the leaders, short periods of time, building up that social capital so they can have those out-of-band conversations. They build up that trust, that reciprocity, that, hey, we are partners here. I'm not the guy down the hall who has to sign off on some business process or that you need. We're partners on here. We're going to succeed or fail together. And I think that that's really important today going forward. Companies today, if you're a leader and you don't know who your CISO is, shame on you. If you're a CISO and you don't understand all the leaders, well, shame on you.
Right. And the importance of the CISO having a tight relationship with the CIO and ideally the C-suite.
Absolutely. I think that's what I was trying to say. They need to make sure that they're a known entity, and that's not the guy who came to a board meeting to explain an issue or a problem, right? Because if you're looked at as the guy that only shows up when there's an issue or a problem, you're not a partner. And so let's be a partner and show up in that room with a thought leadership going forward. Don't just show up just to explain what happened.
Gary, you had an insanely successful career in many different industries and so forth. When you think about your success, at some point you were fearless in engaging senior level executives. At one point had a relationship with Jamie Dimon from JP Chase, one of the most powerful executives truly in business, right?
Yes, we used to speak at a lot of the same events. And as I was doing cyber, we would talk about it. But I will tell you, it is that some of the things I just talked about were that when I used to show up for some of the meetings, some of the senior level meetings, the people would go, uh-oh, what happened? Wrong. I needed to change that perception. I'm not the uh-oh, what happened guy, right? I'm the, hey, I'm with you in your business plans. As we move into these different business areas, my team and I are working on solutions, again, for problems that might exist or might not exist, but we're thinking ahead. We're not going to be that roadblock or in the critical path, right? We're going to be the partner. And I think that's one of the best lessons I learned. I had the privilege of working with some of the most senior people in the world. And that's what I learned, is to partner with them and be a partner with them. Just don't be the guy that shows up when it's uh-oh.
Right. Great points, great advice. In closing, what's new for Zoom now or in the near future, or any new enhancements as we return to this hybrid work from the office, work from home environment?
Well, we talked about some of them at the beginning, but I think what you're going to see is as we go to a contactless environment, we're going to see more of that. Like, wouldn't it be great to be sitting in a conference room and someone's on the whiteboard? You don't have to go to the whiteboard. You can talk to the whiteboard from your phone. The goal would be use what you own, right? Don't have to go and touch things, very contactless. And I think you're going to see that. You're also going to see that as the work from home model becomes a big part of our future, we are coming out with like standard work from home devices, purpose built, that have Zoom, so it doesn't have to be on your computer. It could be purpose built. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. Remote management, again. And we're also looking at things like, wouldn't it be great, Hunter, if someday this was, I think what we're going to call it is immersive scenes. And really we're sitting across a board table, me and you, talking, having this conversation. We're not two little boxes. And so look for some of the new features that came out on Zoomtopia. If you haven't seen the Odette presentation on Zoomtopia, I'm not going to tell you to watch all of Zoomtopia. It was 2 days of great conversation. But if you can't miss, and please don't tell Eric I said this, but even if you have to miss Eric, see Odette's functionality go forward, because what he talked about, product enhancements, is a lot of what's going on for the future of work and returning to a hybrid.
And Gary, Odette
he's the head of product for Zoom.
You guys, what a dynamic, innovative company, perhaps one of the most innovative companies, I think, in the past 10 years. Congratulations on a great job there, Gary, and working with Zoom, being the thought leader in our industry. And I'm really proud and honored to have you guys as a client, and love having you guys, love being on your platform.
Yeah, and we're proud and honored to be a sponsor on your events too. You know, we always continually to work with you to make your events always push the envelope as best we can.
Awesome. Gary, take care. We'll be talking to you soon.
All right, take care. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Great. Bye now. Next up, we have Marcus Fowler. Marcus is the Director of Strategic Threat at Darktrace in Securing the Future of Work, How Cyber and AI Learns on the Job. Marcus, great to see you.
Great to see you, Hunter. It's always a pleasure. And I love following Gary, right? So many great insights about kind of what Zoom's doing and where they're going. He's always a great one to listen in on and make sure I'm getting everything I can from all the cool things Zoom's doing.
Hey, an update, when you're talking, and the topic here is how cyber AI learns on the job. Talk to us about what's uniquely different about Darktrace that folks might not know, be fully aware of, how Darktrace actually learns on the job.
Sure. And I think, the first thing you would love to talk about is certainly that novel application of AI. But I think even before that, it is the approach to security in general, of that understanding normal and enforcing that as being the position of strength, right? And that kind of speaks to that exact thing that's happening in the dynamic workforce environment that Gary is alluding to. If I can understand how and where at a very granular level what's happening within your environment, that allows to me to be threat agnostic. And in being threat agnostic, that really is a position of strength, because it's going to be so hard increasingly to predict where threat attackers are going to come from, what attack they're going to use, what the latest signature, the latest malware is going to be. But the real position of strength for business resilience, for defensive superiority, is that being able to understand normal, and then your default is simply maintaining and enforcing normal business operations, right? The business continues, everything happens. Anything that attempts or do anything anomalous within your environment, it is simply quarantined and moved out of the way. Zero impacts to business operations, but all the security, whether it's a 0-day insider threat from the outside or already on the inside.
Interesting. When you see this threat landscape change so dramatically in 7-8 months, what do you see initially and what are you seeing now?
Sure. I think initially it was a lot of taking advantage of spear phishing and the anxiety and the distraction and the kind of starvation for new information about what's happening with schools or state or even the election, right? We're still seeing that. That hasn't gone away, but that was probably the first spike, was taking advantage of the event that it was and having spear phishing go up. We've seen that tradecraft certainly begin to evolve. Now you're seeing much more novel social engineering driven spear phishing, malware lists without those links. And we've seen a lot of heavy dependency on our enhanced email coverage, because it actually does look at behavior and relationship more than is this bad. The other is something that your poll brought out, and that's cloud and SaaS. I think the movement and the acceleration of IT for business survival created gaps in visibility, loss of visibility, changes of visibility. So then now those SaaS platforms and those cloud integrations are starting to become increasing threat areas. So Darktrace as a company, that I'd say at the top of our list of where we pivoted our R&D was more SaaS integrations, bigger, more useful SaaS visibility and user interface, as well as getting down and out there on that endpoint for a client sensor to bring in that critical endpoint telemetry, so that whether it's sitting inside the corporate network, outside the corporate network, at a coffee shop, in a conference room, we're going to have visibility into that device and be able to alert against and act against any malicious activity therein.
It's let's talk a little bit more about kind of the learning process once you get into. First off, back up. How you scale in, how you spin up an instance with Darktrace. What is it like to get started? How quickly can you get started?
Sure.
And what is it like as it learns your whole enterprise footprint?
Absolutely. So the learning and the going out is an unsupervised learning approach. So that means it doesn't require an external training data set. It's models and classifiers that learns on the job very quickly. The granularity that understands normal is really key. And we saw a great load test over the last, say 7 months ago now, when you had this transition to work from home. That was probably measured in hours rather than days. As Gary said, it was a Friday and everybody was told. And so you had this extreme change in normal. But the artificial intelligence, because of how richly it understands all the different things that happen, didn't, go haywire with all these alerts. It actually adapted to that massive change, but a massive change within normal. So their behaviors didn't change. Maybe where they were doing those behaviors from really did, right? So that unsupervised learning really proved to be very powerful. And it takes, to your time frame about how long it takes to learn, it probably takes 7 days, 7 to 10 days is what we want to get out there to kind of learn that digital environment. But I will tell you, in the earliest of days, we can start kind of looking and understanding. And I don't know if you saw in the press, but there's been a kind of large scale ransomware campaign that's going on against hospitals and healthcare systems that seem to have been the last 24 to 48 hours. Actually, I had a CNN reporter reach out to me last night to tip me to like, hey, are you guys seeing this within your environment? And thankfully we weren't. And that was because, we were stopping it before it got far enough along for it to be attributed to that same ransomware campaign. But that speed and how those things are happening, that richness of understanding and needing to be able to defend normal is really going through the roof with all the events. And certainly I feel for anyone that is in the middle of what is a pretty significant ransomware campaign that seems to be going on right now.
Darktrace historically hasn't been in email security, but you have a new offering.
That's right. Yeah, it's kind of enhanced, and it's the only product that we kind of broke out to stand alone from the overall cyber AI platform, and it is that Antigena for email, or that enhanced email. I personally have been really shocked by how many customers have just gone out of their way to say, I absolutely love this. In fact, we just were mentioning healthcare and hospitals, and the most recent one was totally unprompted, saying this does such an amazing job at going after those impersonation, those BEC scams, those social engineering heavy that are really driven more by tricking the human rather than, savvy malware or something along those lines that can get caught, but increasingly, say 20% of these or some of these more sophisticated ones are making it through traditional email security tools.
Interesting, right? Do you think was something missing in the past across the whole the enterprise threat landscape that you've figured out and you plugged?
I think it's adapting, evolving to the tradecraft and where things are happening. I think it's just transitioning to the way that things were coming in, as well as just that application of AI and machine learning, right? Not starting from a place of is this bad, but from a place of does this belong? Does this relationship make sense? Does this context make sense in terms of how emails normally? So it's more about behavioral and relationship than good or bad or something odd within it, which is a little bit more static and not necessarily as intelligent in terms of richness and understanding what's happening. And so, attackers, they are ever evolving their tradecraft. They are ever shifting to that current security best practice and working ways around it. I think what we've seen is exactly that, and seen that accelerate over the last 3 to 6 months.
Marcus, you speak with a lot of CISOs, right? Every day, every week, throughout the year. And when you think of what a CISO needs to do most now in terms of leading effectively into the C-suite, line of business, and even the board, Any tips? Any thoughts there?
I mean, I would kind of, to use a military term, kind of foot stop what Gary said in terms of being able to discuss, really put in that emotional and political capital where you're talking about how things are going, how things are working, what is working, and really building it up from a point of, ROI, efficient use of human and monetary resources to maximize security, right? And do that in a very efficient way, and being able to translate that. I think for some of the areas that we've discussed most, that I find resonates with CISOs that I talk about, one is the application of AI to do staff augmentation. So be able to do autonomous investigations and autonomous triage that we found that which was a new that was one of our latest kind of version 4 of December that we added to the enterprise immune system. And we're actually improving it here at the end of the month with the next version. And it allows it to do a lot of the investigative heavy lifting to allow that security team is starting from a point of action rather than those early stages of initial investigation. So saving 20 to 30 minutes per investigation, saving FTE, saving those resources. It really is about doing more with that security wallet. I think the other area I would point to is having a place that is less what is often referred to as a tool stack and more of a security engine where tools are collaborating and bringing value to each other and working as a mechanism rather than niche solutions, right, that aren't necessarily greater than the sum of their parts.
Got it. Great. How do people get started with you folks at Darktrace?
Sure. One great place they can always go right from here is the marketplace, right? It's right up over my right shoulder. The other is certainly darktrace.com. If they have any specific questions, they're always welcome to come get me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active in that space. But yeah, there's the webinars. There's a lot of good information out there, whether it's white papers or demos. It's really fun to see it kind of the demo and all the UI and the great way of how you think about a workflow that leans heavily on AI to do the investigation and then can deep dive into the logs and that type of thing. And that really all kind of folds up into what, we hope will be a proof of value that is you seeing your data, and being able to kind of kick the tires, ask the hard questions, make sure it works within your workflow, integrates with all those other wonderful things in your tool stack. So you're, again, maximizing any number of ways to build efficiency and resource allocation within that structure.
Hey, Marcus, thanks again. Great to see you today. And thanks again for Darktrace being a national partner and supporting the launch of the marketplace. Really a visionary thought, Nicole, and you all coming around us. And ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Fowler, truly a world-class thought leader in our industry. Thanks.
Thank you, Hunter. It's always great to be here.
Good to see you. Next up, we have reimagining the enterprise and the future of work. If I can invite the panelists to turn on their cameras, that'd be great. And let's start with my dear friend, Wanda Jones-Heath from the United States Air Force. Wanda, great to see you.
Thanks, Hunter, for the opportunity once again to discuss everything that's going on in my world and in the world of cybersecurity.
Hey, give us an update from your point of view, working in the government, working with at the U.S. Air Force. What are you seeing now at this point of the pandemic, and what's the future look like for you all?
We'll continue to improve. The pandemic allowed us to take a closer look at our capabilities, our infrastructure, and, allow us to make some critical decisions in a fast pace. We recognize that there were a lot of policies that were outdated, that were not enabling the department to move into a digital environment, and just trying to make sure that we stay connected to our partners, our industry partners, as well as our customers. So the pandemic, although a blessing in disguise, really allowed the community to move and provide that capability to the warfighter.
And when you think about a secure enterprise, what does winning look like for you in that context?
Being able to know who's on our network, being proactive, using all of those tools that we have invested in over the years and maximize the use and the capability, understanding, what our limitations are. We went from 6,000 VPN connections a day to over 650,000. I mean, that is huge. And we were able to sustain that. And now our focus is to now continue to build on that, ensure that we have a secure backbone, that we are preparing for what's next.
And Wanda, did you see a real spike in activity as we all began to work from home?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the shift was quick, and that required us to even be quicker to ensure that we have a secure, sustainable, and protected backbone. We saw activity and spikes all over the course United States and in our Oconus locations. And so having that vast amount of ecosystem to protect and understand what was, you know, very high level, but we were able to do that as a partner with the folks who take care of our network.
Okay, stay with us, Wanda. I'll circle back to you. Great to see you. Next up, I want to invite Anahi Santiago, Ciso for Christiana Care Health Systems. Anahi, great to see you.
Great being here.
Thanks so much. You know, when you think about where we were working from home and now possibly moving into a hybrid environment, there was that initial knee-jerk reaction. And now when we think about working going forward, more of a steady state, what's on your mind?
So being in a healthcare delivery organization, right, a large hospital network, our situation was a little bit unique in terms of we couldn't just have everybody work from home. We still needed our caregivers and our physicians and clinicians to come into the hospital and care for patients. So for us, our push to support working from home extended beyond just our employees. It also extended to a very rapid shift to telehealth and virtual care, and a model where not only did we look for solutions to keep our specialists at home so that they could consult with physicians that were on premise, but also consult with patients that were at home, but also create a model where in hospital beds that were contained with COVID positive patients, leveraging technology very similar to remote access to keep clinicians away from the room. So for us, the model that we created very quickly in response to COVID became very complicated. But we were able to fully support based on infrastructure that we already had in place to enable this sort of new care delivery model. And now that the hospitals are back to normal in terms of elective surgeries and regular routine checkups, we've got even more people in the hospitals now. But we will maintain this hybrid model in perpetuity. There are support departments like HR and IT and others that at this point have no plans of bringing people back. And so for us, our next phase is really to ensure that the processes that we have put in place are sustainable over a period of time, and that we continue to evolve in the virtual care space to enable our caregivers to be able to cast a wider net in the way that we deliver telehealth.
It must have been an amazing shift, right, of culture and your whole go-to-market and how you support this new threat landscape.
It was fascinating and rewarding. So to Wanda's point, right, it was a pandemic, yet there's so many valuable things that came out of it. We in healthcare have been talking about virtual care for decades. And because of reimbursement models and cultural barriers, we were able to really adopt it. And now, within a month, we had 96% of our medical group delivering virtual care, and we're not going to go backwards. So this new shift has really challenged us to think differently about how we support our caregivers, and not only that, but to think differently about how we support our patients who are now home with devices and technology that we have a duty to protect because they're still, used to deliver care and they're used to process confidential information. So it's a very new world, but it's an exciting one.
And Anahi, stay with us. We're going to circle back here in just a minute. Great story. Thank you. Next up, we have Deepak Bhaskaran. Deepak's with Duo Security. He's the Director of Engineering and Quality. Deepak, great to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Hunter.
We have a little survey here popped up, I see. If you would just jump in there and take the survey, that'd be great. How am I limiting exposure to sensitive data? Okay, close to it. Can you see that, Deepak?
Yes.
Looks like you got MFA, DLP, corporate management devices, and some of the above. Excellent. Let's share results.
Excellent.
Any comments on that survey there, Deepak?
Sure. So this is something that we've seen, right? Just the bare fact that people turn on MFA has discouraged attackers from coming in. That's something that we've learned in the past. Just by virtue of having MFA on all your services, the number of open scans that are hitting your servers are going down. So this is certainly something that we've heard from our customers, and I'm glad that it's on everybody's mind.
Great. When you think of how Duo protects us all, I'm a happy client, by the way, myself. Top line, just a top line, what makes you folks uniquely different?
So the way we view security is probably what is our unique differentiator. We don't want to provide just more security. We want to provide better usable security. I think we're in a time in our lifetimes where CISOs have the best possible shot at getting management buy-in. How do we make the most of this? How do we make sure that we put security in place that just adds to the user's path and not forces the user to go off to a different path just to be more secure? So I think that's a word that Duo plays really nicely in. We care so much about the user. Everything is built with the focus on the user and ensuring that it's really usable. So with that said, I'll say that we've seen some of those come through in terms of numbers, right? When we started the pandemic, we were at 600 million authentications a month, and now we are at 1 billion a month. Easy, right? Every month we're seeing 1 billion authentications. So we're seeing some of the results of that. People are finding it easy to deploy us and to start using us, and we are seeing that 1 billion. We went a 40% jump in the number of authentications. That is huge. And I'm just happy it's so easy to roll out. We can roll this out in a day. So when Friday, the 13th March came around and we had to just go home and we all had to secure everybody on Monday, what do? A lot of people came to us and helped us and asked us, can you roll this out over the weekend? We're like, yeah, absolutely, yes. So that's the world we live in. And I'm happy to say that we're built for this.
So perfect timing, perfect positioning, perfect place. Unique aspect of Duo's culture, right? Really is an interesting culture.
It certainly is. So I've never worked at a place that had being kinder than necessary as one of its corporate values. The other corporate value is learning together and engineering the business, right? With these three unique things, I think the solutions that come out of Duo are a lot more around not just silos. They force people to work together. So I think that certainly sets Duo apart. I'm not the same person that I was when I joined Duo. I learned so much about security in the last 4 years. And I ascribe to the version that Duo builds, that it's all about the user. We have so many different personas that we design for, and we're constantly learning about those personas. So it really makes sure that the product we build actually solves the purpose. We actively get out of people's way and let them do what their day job is.
Awesome. Deepak, stay with me. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Next up, we have Joe Dyer. Joe's the CISO at ICF International. Hey, Joe, a little bit about ICF.
Sure.
Set context.
Sure. So ICF is a marketing management consulting company. We're global. We extend across many different sectors. That'd be energy, public health, environmental, education, transportation, disaster management, and the DoD. And we offer everything from advisory to analytics, all the way through digital transformation, cybersecurity, research and evaluation, public policy, and so forth. So to us, it's an extremely dynamic time of change because we have so many different considerations in the markets that we're in. So we don't build widgets. We have to really step back. And there were two really primary areas of focus that the organization had to take a look at, in going through these changes in today's environment.
What do you see are the top challenges in the security landscape today, Joe?
Yes. So it's the same theme that most have been talking about, right? So, one of the things that we really had to do, and I think, a CISO is really thinking on the same path, is all about the preparedness and foresight. So it's not what we are today, is how we start to migrate and look at a post change that's going to occur. So, we had to really step back, flip it upside down, and reevaluate and rethink through that cyber strategy to address the new strategies, but at the same time, make sure that we don't do, conduct unintentional business disruption. So if we take a look at, some of the challenges that we all faced, and this is not common just to us, but we went from a surface by which was, 70 offices, say, and 15% remote workforce to 70,000 remote home offices. And that presents some really interesting challenges. So we had to figure out, just not saying no to things, because we had to look at customer engagement. And that was, we had to figure out, how do we still conduct business without saying no? So we're really slipping the no answer to here's what the possibilities are from a security landscape. So determining, really, how do we adopt a business so that we will continue to support our customers and the clients in a very distributed environment. So I think if you take a look at what that really means, is from a CISO perspective, is we really had to discover better ways, right, to collect, process, and analyze data from a cyber risk side. So we really understood and stood back and said, well, where are the real risk, right? Because we understand that no longer will the majority of assets be contained behind, say, on-prem security infrastructure. But so it's going to be really, again, as we said before, anywhere, anytime, the accessibility of data. So taking a look at strategies around your zero trust model, or looking at user behavior analytics, or advanced endpoint detection from a detection and response perspective, and then be able to think ahead and saying, well, that's all good, but what is the new technology and the innovation that's going to really impact that for us today to be able to still continue have us to engage, but again, still be secure. For an example, we take a look at the speed of data and looking at 5G technology. So how does that correlate back to what are we seeing today when the majority of the workforce is going to work from home? So from a cyber perspective, we really have to respond and implement the appropriate tools and work with the right partners so that we can respond and detect a lot faster to prevent certain actions from occurring. Because again, in today's market, once it's occurring, if you don't respond to it quick enough, in many cases, it's too late, right? Look at the ransomware that's happening through the health industry now. So that's one of the biggest challenges I think that we really face today, is how do we start to migrate and understand what are those things from a foresight perspective we have to start to consider. And there's some technologies in place and to allow us to really migrate and start to implement a lot of those strong security controls and standards around. One thing we also see is that the cloud infrastructure, I don't think is going to go anywhere. Pre-COVID, there was already a migration of a lot of organizations going to the cloud. But as I said, with the rapid move, and this was stated before, I think there's some gaps in understanding, the cloud security components and getting your teams trained up in the areas of cloud security and implementing the appropriate skills and development and implementing the tools to manage those descriptions and the data and so forth that may reside there.
Hey, Joe, well said. When you think of the role of the CISO and the CIO and it evolving, what are the challenges and what are the opportunities to work better together?
Yeah, so I think it's really important, as you state, great question, that the CIO and the CISO and all the tech leaders really have to have a tightened security and operation within the corporation. I think before, although we may have worked together, the metrics, right? The objectives may have been a little different. But I think now we have to really bake in security. So I think what we're going to see is that the objectives and those overall metrics are going to start aligning a little closer together, which really is going to force, again, the CIO, the CISOs, and the tech leaders to work closely together within the organization. And another driving guiding point behind that, it's also the ideas around what's happening within the compliance and regulatory. If we take a look at some particulars around GDPR, CCPA, SRIMS, Brexit, CMMC, DFARS, I mean, all of that is really driving us into a direction of data privacy, data protection, while still being able to support a very diverse and distributed workforce.
Awesome. Great job, Joe. Really appreciate you being here. Good to see you. Hey, Wanda, I saw you shaking your head there. Yes, agreeing with Joe. I think, what are your thoughts about leadership as a CISO, leadership, in the enterprise, leadership in the government sector, but leading together with the CIO?
I work directly for the CIO, and so part of my strategy is to ensure that we are running in the same direction. It's kind of like a yin and yang type, partnership. As a CISO, I have to be mindful of where innovation and transformation fits in. What is the value proposition to the business, and in our case, the warfighter? We have to continue our mission, but we want to ensure that we do it smartly. And so, partnering with, my boss, looking across the Air Force and finding advocates that can really push why cybersecurity is part of the process before and not after. Ensuring that our IT investment strategy incorporates all those things that I care about, but keeping the customer in mind. User experience is important. Everything we do points back to what is the value proposition and the capability of the warfighter to get the mission done.
We could learn so much from you, Wanda. I know we can. Really good insights. When you think of the wartime or the military mindset, is there anything that you might share with us that's in the public domain that we're not totally dialed into, being the private sector or the commercial sector, that we might be able to learn from you in terms of, how tough this environment is right now in that we're in the cyberspace?
Some of the biggest things is, of course, the industry partnership, looking at the industry for innovation, best practices, and where you fit into what we're trying to do. One of the biggest things is understanding our transformation, our current state. Where are we, as a department of the Air Force or Department of Defense to where we're trying to go? We have a strategy. We have multiple strategies that we're now collaborating on and incorporating the big picture, the investment strategy, the planning in parts and pieces of our infrastructure is huge right now. And then doing a lot of work on customer experience and ensuring that, as we talk about cybersecurity in the fence, outside of the fence is just as important. The adversary doesn't care where that data is. They just want it. And so I would challenge our industry partners to be very vigilant when it comes to protecting their infrastructure, protecting the government's data, so that we won't see, a jet flying around that looks just like what we have. Our strength is in our competitive edge. Competitive edge for us is being innovative, ensuring that the capabilities are in place and that we have access to the edge.
What does winning look like to you now, Wanda, when you think of all the years of wisdom, your experience in this environment? What does winning look like?
Winning means that we have to accelerate change. We can't depend on what we have now to win the fight for tomorrow. Understanding that, change requires innovation. Innovation is about, how do we do things better, maximizing our IT dollars to bring in the right capabilities that provide what the warfighter needs. And so all of that together, is a perfect storm. The pandemic has pushed us in a direction that I think is absolutely wonderful. We just need to sustain that and be able to take what we know now, incorporate it, and press hard as we can. We can't let our foot off the gas now.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the program, Wanda. Hopefully you can stay to the innovation and invention panel. I think you'll hear from couple really interesting, cool enterprise security companies that we found in Silicon Valley.
Absolutely.
Hey, Anahi, thanks. Anahi, when you think about the future of work for healthcare delivery systems and the pressure on you to deliver, what are you thinking about?
I'm obviously thinking about the patients and ensuring that every step that we take is for the good of healthcare delivery. And I'm also thinking about making sure that I partner very closely with our caregivers and our clinical and business leadership to ensure that I understand their strategic direction so that I can position and align our information security strategy to support that mission. All the while also thinking about, risk management activities, especially with ever so escalating threat landscape. And I think it was mentioned earlier, there was a elevated alert that came out yesterday towards the healthcare industry, and we're under some pretty significant attacks. So for us, it's making sure that we are resilient and can continue to deliver care in the face of some pretty significant threats, and also in the face of some pretty significant, innovative, and very fast-paced changes. And to sustain that, we need to adopt an agile methodology that is in lockstep with what the organization is looking to accomplish. And in the future, that means telehealth, and it means virtual care, and it means delivering care digitally and in a patient's home wherever possible. And so having that knowledge can enable security professionals in the healthcare delivery systems to start to design their security controls and their security methodologies to enable that future that's really here today.
You strike me as a person, as a professional that really enjoys the challenge, and you've really stepped up and delivered.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's very rewarding to be able to be in an industry where I'm only two hands away from a patient and their lives, but working for an organization that really is committed to the principles of digital healthcare and virtual care exposes me to challenges that I haven't necessarily seen as an information security professional outside of this industry. So it definitely forces us to create solutions for things that haven't been solved for. But I think as information security professionals, we enjoy the learning and we enjoy the creativity and we enjoy problem solving.
Great job. Thanks, Anahi. Great to see you. Excellent. Deepak, when you think about Duo and your go-to-market, what's the ideal enterprise look like that you work with? Or do you work in large, mid, and small organizations and cross-industry?
So that's a great question, right? So when we started out, I think we were more geared towards the small and medium customers. So when I joined in 2016, we had 8,000 customers. Out of that, maybe 90% were small and medium. And then as we matured as an organization, we said, what do we do to move our business up? How do we get into the enterprise space? So recently, most of the features we've been adding are helping us get into, and we are no stranger to enterprise right now. Right now, Cisco is one huge company. Right now, after they acquired us, we protect every single system in there. They are moving towards a full zero trust organization by deploying our products. That's one great example. That's a 120,000 employee company. And we were able to get them onto Office 365 so quickly that I think their heads were spinning. We have a video out there where we show that we can protect Office 365 working with Active Directory in 3 minutes. We set it up live on stage while the person that's setting it up is being bombarded with emails and people walking by saying, hey, you're late for Scrum. That's where we are. So we've really adopted, and that's one of our strengths. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. If you need security, you need usable security and quick, we can do it.
How do people get in touch with you, Deepak at Duo, and how can they follow up with you?
Deepak@duo.com is perfect. And if you have more questions that I can't answer, I'm happy to put you in touch with other folks.
Hey, reach out to Deepak folks at Duo and find out more. It's a great way to support today's summit and the HMG platform and us going forward. Really appreciate it. Hey, Joe, kind of final word. You seem to me to be a real forward-leaning, innovative, kind of a courageous leader in our industry. What do you see next as being the next big thing that's going to come down the pike by nation states or any kind of enterprise-wide threat?
I think it really comes down to is the old techniques being reinvented, but with more sophistication and looking at that. So it's really, again, as I alluded to before, is that how quickly can we being able to obtain intelligent information, which leads me back to another area of strategy, and that is to really start to look at cyber intelligence at scale. with the new scams and the rise of the on an unprecedented scale of attacks. We really have to take a look at the intelligence investigation tools and some strategies around that. And I think to fold this in the last 30 seconds of here, I don't think we can underestimate the refocus on cybersecurity training as well, particularly from the work at home and as an increased state-sponsored activity. The not only the scale has changed, but the direction of who they're attacking has changed and where they're attacking. So we no longer can hide behind the corporate firewalls. We're now looking at whether is someone's home safe enough, whether they can't penetrate to get into a corporate system. So again, the ideas around having a awareness training just to check the box, I think that's over. And moving forward, we will really have to set a posture in organizations to really increase the aptitude around each and every employee to understand what that really means.
Excellent. Hey, Joe, thanks for coming on the program. Hey, Gary, I want to invite you, Gary Gooden, on to the program. Ciso at Seattle's Children's Hospital. So we're bringing in the West Coast here. Gary, great to have you on the program.
Hey, thank you, Hunter. I've been sitting here the entire time, so I wasn't sure if I was in the right place.
No worries, you are. Hey, just give us a couple of updates. When you think of being a CISO, is the CISO the rookie in the executive suite, or is he or she the pro?
No, the CISO is definitely the rookie.
Why?
Well, I mean, if you think about the CIO role, right? The CIO role came about in the early 80s, and the CISO role came about well over a decade after. So it's a natural maturity play relative to the maturity of the CISO role. Hence, you have the discussions over and over again. Does the CISO report to the CIO? Does it report to the CTO? Does he or she report to the CEO? Does it report to general counsel? Is it a role that rolls up into a chief risk officer if your organization is so structured? So yeah, absolutely, the kid in the shop.
What do you think about in your role as a CISO now and leading in this current environment? What's on your mind?
Well, I mean, I've been listening quietly to all the speakers. I was impressed with Wanda and her comment about 640,000 VPN connections. That's some impressive stuff right there. And Anahi speaking from an empathetic point of view about the role of security in the healthcare industry, or Joseph from a bleeding edge perspective, and obviously Deepak from a DUA perspective. But everything that was said is what we need to do. The question is, do we have the voice to do it? And I think that ties right back to the fact that, yes, we are the rookie in the C-suite layer. Yes, I was listening to something else that the gentleman from Zoom was talking about relative to not being called to the carpet when there's a problem, but so that when you walk into the room, it's the oh no moment. All right, you need to get past the oh no moment. It's like, no, this is just a normal part of interacting with the security team. So from my perspective, the only way to push forward on things like zero trust and what that means, and moving security away from device to persona. Okay, so it's really more role-based access control. And if it's in the health industry, you can even think about medical devices as entity-based devices. The only way to do that is to refactor the way in which you look at technology from an infrastructure support services perspective, and the amalgamation of the chief technology officer role and the CISO role, assuming you have a CTO. I mean, I've seen instances where CISOs report to CTOs, which to me is a nightmare, but those models exist. So if you pivot the organization's thinking to move from a service-based model to having a security-defined technology department, you're going to be in a better position to innovate. So that when you do report out to the C-suite, for argument's sake, or if you have to report out to the board, it's more about the normalized culture where you're actually on a cadence of saying, this is where we are. The threat landscape, as everybody is alluding to, is going to increase exponentially. It is just going to, that's just a fact. And because it's a really profitable business. So therefore, our ability to defend is really a losing proposition over time. It really is. So until we get to the point where we can actually actively hunt, it's going to be very, very difficult to try to quote unquote stay at pace with or ahead of the pack. It's almost impossible. And so the pivot really has to really be about the mentality or the philosophy of embedding security into the thinking of the organization. So that's how I perceive it.
I love it. Gary, great job, and really appreciate your coming on today's program. Great panel, folks. I want to thank Deepak, Joe, Gary, Wanda, Anahi. Really good job. And we have a bunch of summits, guys. This is a global platform that we built here at HMG, a global network, a bunch of summits coming up that we do need some support and engagement and speakers, like our first ever Portland summit, November 13th. If you are open on that date, we'd love to have you participate. Or 10 days later, ironically, the 23rd, we're in Seattle, where they want us to come to Seattle and pull off a world-class HMG summit. And we're looking for panelists, we're looking for advisory board members, we're looking for engagement. And I think you'll all agree, we're all in this together, right? And what's unique about HMG platform, and it's different, I see you nodding yes, Wanda, is this was, it's self-funded. And so we're not backed by a publicly traded company. We're backed by our partners that, thank God, we have 4 great partners here today. We're backed by you all y'all, and the largest independent tech network of executives around the world, around North America, I would say, and probably the one company that cares about your brand, your professional brand, because your brand matters, getting it up and out across the digital highway on a global level. Over the years, we've spent millions of building that. And by being part of us here today, the press releases and the various other posts, LinkedIn's and such, you get branded in the context of our global ecosystem, which I think is truly unique. Now, I've never done this kind of advertisement before. Just looking for some support for these upcoming 2 events. But also, the panel coming up is really unique. It's the search executive panel, unique to us. And you may need to talk to these guys at one point. I don't know. Maybe sooner, maybe later. Hopefully later. But open door. Love to have you guys back again. And hopefully you can stay to the end of this show and listen to Ed. Ed, the interview with Ed's going to be amazing. And I want to invite the search execs out. Thank you, folks. And we have Matthew Combs, we have Michael Piacente with Steve Spagnuolo, and our own Tom Hoffman actually is going to run the panel, guys. Tom, you there?
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'd like to ask the panel members to put on their cameras and turn on their audio. And as they're doing that, I wanted to share a little bit of context around our discussion today. As we've touched on throughout the summit, it's really been an exciting and challenging time for CISOs. And we find in our research that as many CISOs truly enabled their organizations to move forward through this crisis and to operate remotely successfully, it's created new opportunities for them at the C-suite level and with the board as well. But it'll be interesting to get the perspective of executive recruiters in that regard to hear what they're seeing. And I'd like to start by asking Matt Comyns to join us. And Matt, great to see you again.
Good to see you, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for being with us. So Matt, can you paint a picture for us in terms of what you're seeing in the landscape, as we've gone through this, pivot over the last 7 months? What has this meant for CISOs? What are you seeing in terms of demand? And with that, what are CEOs and hiring managers looking for from the CISOs that they're actively searching for?
Sure. Great. Well, I guess the thing that's shocking to me, and I'm sure Stephen and Michael as well, is, we've been doing this for a while. Certainly, 9-10 years, and 7 in particular, where it's been, really growing at a fast clip. And what's amazing is it keeps expanding, maybe not quite to the degree it was, the CISO market and the demand for CISOs as, 2015 or 16 or some of those peak years of sort of hockey stick growth. But with each passing year, it just keeps growing. It grows through different industries. It grows through different geographies. And of course, through COVID, through the pandemic, I think it's been accelerated because of ransomware attacks and a lot of the attacks, which if you look at companies like FireEye Mandiant or Palo Alto bought Crypsis Network, and all the reports, although security budgets took a hit, the one area across the board for all services companies, they'll tell you, was growing through this period of time was incident response, right? And that really lights a fire under demand.
Interesting, thanks. So as you track the industry and as you work with CISOs and security leaders and placing them, what changes have you seen in compensation? Have you seen a significant change, hopefully upward for CISOs?
Yes, the answer, at some point we'll top out. We're not quite there. But if you look, just about 7 years ago, the Target breach, right? That made headlines in so many different ways, not the least of which was compensation. When a new executive was brought in, that became one of the first $1 million hires, right? For a CISO. And these are tier one, CISOs. So obviously it's lots of different scales of compensation. But even if you take the tippy top of the market, there weren't many CISOs back then that were making upwards of $1 million. It was really unprecedented. So you fast forward today, and the tier one CISOs, the TikToks, the Capital Ones, the Zoom videos, all of these different things, and we're over $3 million, right? Pushing $4 million at the highest end. So it's tripled to quadrupled if you just take those data points, at the tier one level. And I would say, although the second tier and the third tier, sort of opportunities haven't quite grown at that pace. I think that the top demands the most appreciation. It's grown, and we're seeing new categories. The more companies, the more industries that get on board, the talent supply just can't keep up with the demand.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. Matt, we'll circle back to you in a moment. Steve Spagnuolo, good to see you again.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
How's everything?
Okay. Yourself?
Good, thanks. So, Steve, we've talked a lot about the role of the CISO, how it's been evolving. Can you share with us, what you're seeing in the market in terms of demand and what you're hearing from CEOs and hiring managers with respect to what they're looking for?
Sure. I mean, there's definitely, and I think there will be for, I referred to it several, at least a generation of supply demand unbalance, and we're still kind of going through that generational shift. I think a lot of, in the realm of CISO land and, corporate cybersecurity has been institutionalized from kind of going back when Matt was referring to 7 years ago. I'm using the term a lot in terms of cyber years, it's kind of dog years. I'm not sure kind of what I mean by that, but a lot happens in a little bit amount of time. We weren't talking about offensive capability, 7 years ago. We weren't talking about working with Israeli, companies coming into the U.S., 7 years ago. So a lot has happened. There's still a lot more to do. The bad guys are still way ahead on the curve. Kind of to Matt's later point, and your ask, I think compensation is still not institutionalized. There's still a wide range and variance there, and it's getting closer, but you just see it still kind of all over the map. As far as, what we're hearing and seeing from our clients, I mean, I'm going to be a bit provocative here, and I've said this before on this venue. I'm not sure I have a lot of patience for, companies of import who are prompted to kind of, digitally transform on the heels of COVID. I mean, we've been talking about digital transformation for 10 years now, so kind of shame on them. So, I think, I think it's just kind of, during COVID, what you saw is the role of the CISO, escalate. And I've said this before, kind of what I termed a beacon of light within the organization, because it really kind of, that was a critical asset and force multiplier for companies to pivot from, kind of a remote workplace entirely. We have all the success stories we know of. We know there were some failures as well. But in terms of kind of here and now, I mean, COVID's still going on and all that. I won't get to the healthcare aspects, but in terms of kind of just companies are kind of just looking ahead, not that COVID's done, but just kind of looking ahead, kind of what are we doing now? And I think, you know, the thematic is they want a sense of control. And I've had 2 clients recently call me kind of out of the blue, both firms I really wasn't marketing to heretofore, so new projects. And, you know, they just don't feel like they have what I'll kind of term a sense of control, a sense of ease. You know, we know we're not going to get everything in order, but, you know, we want a sense where we go to bed at night, we know we're doing all we can reasonably from a digital security risk standpoint. And kind of the counter of that is what's kind of giving them that unease is, you know, they cannot afford to have a loss of confidence. And so that's where the CISO kind of fits into kind of helping to mitigate that loss of commercial confidence vis-a-vis the digital security resiliency platform and mindset and culture and maturity that they're building within the organization. That's really kind of, I think, what the CISO is doing. There's the technical side, but it's kind of adding, you know, this element of a mindset and attitude and culture of digital security resiliency and kind of forward-leading posture. So, and then, you know, what's nice about I'm hearing now as well, not just from the CISO, but from kind of his or her, you know, the executive team overall is, you know, a focus on building the bench. It's not just hiring once, you know, the CISO and kind of that person does it all. It's for, again, companies of import, it's a team effort. And they, you know, I think companies are realizing that. It makes smart because they have to mitigate because of the supply demand equation, you know, a good chance their good CISO is going to be pulled away or at least called on. And so it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons to build an integrated, you know, quality bench where there's a lot of cross training and all that. So, you know, these are the things we're seeing and hearing these days.
That's great. Thanks. So, you know, going back to the bench, as you put it, you know, we've heard a lot from CIOs and CISOs in our conversations about the pros and cons of the remote work environment, one of which being from a talent perspective. You know, the upside is that we can hire people regardless of geography, and we've got that available to us. The challenge is this makes all of our people, all of our talented people, available for others to go after. So I'm interested in what you're seeing in your discussions with CISOs in this regard.
Well, I think, again, to just reference the 2, you know, inbounds I took, I don't think pre-COVID they would have been apt to think broadly, you know, really location doesn't matter. So certainly there is that aspect. I would say that the bigger concern about remote work, especially the CISO team, is getting off the net because it's a 24/7 job and you just kind of, you know, not that we weren't working hard before COVID, but just on the screen, it's a grind. And, you know, part of the challenge is you got to tell your folks to kind of cycle off a bit, whether it's kind of a regular work day or, you know, I'm kind of a madman. I like writing in the middle of the night. So, you know, it's, you know, I do that and I got to make sure you know, myself. So it's, you know, CISOs, you know, on their teams and frankly, CISOs themselves kind of throttling back at the right time and taking a break and just shutting the lid on the laptop. I think that's the bigger challenge. I mean, people are going to get recruited. I mean, you know, Capital One is in DC, Northern Virginia. Guess what? They have a lot of engineers. They're pulling from others for a lot of engineers. A lot of people are pulling from them. That's going to happen regardless. So I don't think that's going to go away.
Excellent. Great advice, Steve. Thanks. Hang with us. We'll circle back shortly. I'd like to ask Michael Piacente to join us now. Michael, how are you?
Hey, guys. I'm good, Tom. Good to see you, Matt and Steve. Hey, guys.
Great to see you too. So, Michael, we had connected over the summer regarding research that your organization has conducted. And, you know, I recall that when we spoke then, we talked about both opportunities you're seeing for security leaders as well as challenges. And I'm wondering if you could give us an update on what you're currently seeing in the market.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I guess actually I wanted to go back to the presentation before from the gentleman from Seattle Hospital, Gary's comment about the CISOs being in the rookie phase. I actually was thinking about that. It was a really interesting analogy. And I think it's more like, to Matt's point, the CISO has really been going through this hockey puck curve upward. And but COVID's really been, you know, the walk-off home run for the CISO. with maybe a subdued celebration at home plate. But I think this year, in my opinion, and from what I see, has been the most astounding and just tremendous year of change and escalation and intensification from in this particular field. I mean, everything about the CISO's role has changed. Everything, the scope, the organizational structure, the comp structure, the CISO protections, how they hire. I mean, a lot of these things are common among other technical executives, but nowhere where we have seen the intensity of change at the CISO level. And specifically, you know, in our particular area, and Matt and Steve and I have a little bit different, you know, kind of coverage for the most part. We all focus on CISOs, and we're all specialists in that area. Our particular kind of, you know, hopeful superpower is in cloud. You know, I'm sitting in the Silicon Valley. Most of my companies are software producing cloud native environments, and that's been an area where we've seen the biggest growth. One, because you have many smaller companies realizing that as they're going after enterprise customers or government, federal customers, whatever it may be, that they're really needing a huge change in the way that they're communicating their narrative. Their protection infrastructure is more complex, and it's also SaaS related. So they're needing a CISO a lot faster. We have several Series A, Series B companies that are hiring bona fide CISOs. We just didn't see that last few years. Been really interesting. And then on the flip side, our enterprise customers have become software developers overnight. They're always developing software, but they've been doing it now in the cloud. Now this remote work environment, really everything about this new environment, this kind of weird year that we're in, has really forced a lot of enterprises to look around their organization and say, we have fantastic CorpSec and InfoSec talent coming out of IT or otherwise, but we really don't have that security engineering and AppSec talent, you know, cloud security. And so how are we going to get there? And so that's really the biggest issue we've been seeing. I mean, I can go through some of the other areas that other people have brought up, but cloud security is by far and away, you know, the biggest thing. I guess the other thing I would say is around complexity of governance. A lot faster, more intense focus around FedRAMP and ISO, and just, you know, obviously everyone needs SOC 2 Type 2 at this point to operate, but just some of the more specific areas in governance are more intense. The CISO is focusing more on that, and so there's just some big changes that we're seeing. Hopefully that helps summarize a little bit.
Yeah, thanks. Interesting. So to play off your baseball analogy, as CISOs hit the ball out of the park, what has this meant in terms of their role in corporate strategy? Are you seeing them get with a stronger place at the table with the CEO and the board in setting corporate strategy and enabling innovation and growth? How would you characterize that?
Yeah, I'd love to say absolutely, without a doubt, but the answer is actually just still sometimes. We actually have our new compensation and reporting structure survey that just went out. So we'll gather that and get it back in February to everyone. But one of the big focus areas is how often do you present to the board? What is the length and what is the topic? You know, what are you being asked to present? And we really want to know, because the conversations that we're having range from everywhere from a really intensified, more focused effort on educating the business about risk, you know, taking those complex platform discussions around your stack and putting them into a business risk, you know, really being a great translator for the business, being a great translator for the board. We've definitely seen some examples of that. Other examples, however, we've seen still, you know, kind of the wrong, and frankly, the wrong business structure for the CISO to shine where their superpowers don't shine. And they've been a little bit quelled into the organization, maybe tucked away a little bit, and just having to play that proverbial game of telephone where they have to talk about the business versus someone else. And by the time it gets up to the board level, it's a little bit, you know, tethered, so to speak. So we've seen those examples as well. And, you know, to Steve's point, that's where usually frustration sets in. You know, I have important things to say. I have a superpower to say it, and I'm not being heard. And so, you know, maybe it's time to go find an organization that will hear me out. So I think we're seeing both examples to your,
Tom, we got to close it down. Final comments.
Sounds good, Hunter. So Matt, can you start us off? What do you see going forward for the CISO? What should they be thinking about in terms of powering their career trajectory?
Well, I guess further to what Michael was just talking about and Stephen earlier, the more you can align yourself with the C-suite, and the board and the corporate strategy and be able to talk at that level, the more successful you're going to be. And again, put cyber risk into enterprise risk, terms for them, help. There's a willingness to get there. Actually, more and more companies, if the CISO has the capacity to talk at that level, they're welcome, to have a seat at the table. But if they don't, they won't be invited. And then there are certain companies that are still behind the curve that, don't really want to invite that in. But I would say more and more companies would love it to be the case where the CISO really has a seat at the table at the top, but they have to demonstrate that they have the capacity to do so. Excellent,
Matt. Thanks so much. Steve, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think the thematic here we're hearing a lot. The thread is, risk, communicating, risk mitigation, our gaps in our risk in our resiliency, cyber posture, and the value add. Again, I go back to those companies who've been forward leading all along, pre-COVID to those now. I mean, they kind of recognize that there's a real need for the CISO's message at the table. And it's being further understood. And, we're having Ed come up. I mean, he's been a master at being able to communicate kind of in plain speak. And that's, I think, a decided advantage there. You can argue Phil Venables, one of Ed's, good friends for many years from Goldman Sachs. He put a piece out not too long ago about kind of provocative. If we're talking about just reporting lines in the CISO, maybe that's the wrong thing. So it's really, reporting lines are one thing, but just how does the message being delivered? If that CISO has direct access to the board, to discuss, assessing reasonable risk, because, measuring risk is very difficult. It's difficult to measure outcome. It's difficult to measure risk. And so, the board needs that insight from a digital security standpoint of how are we measuring that risk with on the capabilities, what we're doing, as well as the gaps in our posture there. So I think that's the message of the day is risk mitigation and how do we assess it and communicate it thereof.
Steve, thanks so much.
Steve.
Hey, Tom, great job, really. Matt, good to see you. It's been a while. Michael, always good to see you. We miss you guys. This is one of our favorite, best signature sessions. Tom, thanks for delivering on this one. And we'll see you all soon. We have a full slate of events, guys, right to the end of the year. We're happy to have you speak at other events if you want to speak again.
Okay. Thanks, Hunter. Thanks, Tom.
Sounds great, Hunter.
Great to see you all. Hey, next up, we have the Hmg Tech Innovation Lab. You won't want to miss this or hearing from Ed Amoroso in the closing interview. The Tech Innovation Lab is all about looking at hot new companies from Silicon Valley, around the world, and Tel Aviv. And we have some co-founder CEOs here, as well as some mid-cap CISO / companies that are partners of ours. So, hey, first up, just real quick, Partha Panda from Cysiv. Partha, welcome to the program, and give us a 1 minute on what's unique about your company, what the problem is that you were looking to solve in the enterprise, where you are right now in terms of your growth trajectory, and what you want or need now.
Hunter, good afternoon to everybody. And Hunter, thanks for having me here at this session. The problem that we are trying to solve is cybersecurity has come to a stage where there is just so much data and volume to deal with, to browse through, to find those actionable alerts. And the challenge is finding those alerts, doing the investigation, and then remediating those alerts for customers. And customers are struggling because of the volume of data, lack of skill set in the SOC. And that's what we're trying to solve by bringing this all together. We are harnessing the power of cloud, the advancements in the data science and automation to create a completely SaaS-based platform to ingest data at scale into the cloud and have the power of data science go through all those volume of data to find those 1 or 2 nuggets. Those are actionable alerts, automate the investigation process, and then we have our experts behind the service working with our customers to remediate any issues. And that's where we help customers take their journey forward in their SOC maturity. Everybody who has any cybersecurity product needs a SOC. and they're always trying to make advancement in that maturity journey, and that's where Cysiv comes in.
And where are you in terms of logos, and where are you in terms of scale your funding?
We just announced, well, not just, it's been a few months now. It feels like just, we closed our Series A, led by Forge Point Capital. We closed over $32 million in our Series A. We're working with some really large brands and large customers, and as well as some mid-size and small customers. We work across the spectrum, but we did start at the very large enterprise segment, and we have some fantastic customers that we work with on a daily basis.
Awesome. Great stuff. Let's all circle back to you. Snehal Antani from Horizon, welcome to the program.
All right, Hunter, great to see you again. And actually, Partha, to hear what you're doing with SOC as a service, just to reiterate to the audience how important that is, especially for small and medium-sized businesses, healthcare, hospitals, those that can't afford to build their own logging, monitoring infrastructure, staff their own security teams, the ability to improve your defensive posture as a way to disrupt your managed security services providers is really important. So just to reiterate for those on the call how important that defensive side of the house is that Partha and others work on. At Horizon 3, we're on the opposite side. We're on the offensive side of cybersecurity. So my frustration as a CIO, when I was a CIO at GE Capital and I was a CTO at Splunk as well, is that attackers knew more about my environment than I did. And they weren't hacking in through 0 days like you see in the movies. They logged in with valid credentials. And it was actually a non-event for the SOC. It looked like normal traffic. And so what I wanted to do was turn the map around, if you will, and look at my organization through the eyes of the attacker, through continuous automated pen testing. And from there, I can identify my defensive blind spots, identify ineffective tools and processes, and use that to fix problems that actually mattered. And that's where we've started. The bigger vision, though, is when you think about the future operating environment for organizations, large and small, software-defined everything means we're going to have a very large unknown attack surface area we've got to go deal with. When you think about the increase in our cyber cold war, if you will, amongst nation states, that's going to increase threats against our commercial industries and the increase in compliance, that future has to be made of not only SOC as a service on the defensive side from folks like Partha and others, but on the other side, continuous security assessments, automatically fixing problems wherever you can so you can accelerate that triage time. Integrating your assessments with threat intelligence. APT 35 looks like they're coming towards you. What are their tactics and where do you need to shore up your defenses to better defend against that specific threat? As well as integrating your security assessment processes with your vendor risk management and supply chain processes as well. Because as we improve our perimeter defense, attackers are going after the soft spots. They're attacking you through your supply chain. They're attacking you through insider threats, as we saw with that Tesla article from a couple of months ago, where they're trying to compromise a Tesla employee to be that insider threat. And they're compromising you through the many ways they can get in and gain that advanced persistent presence. So for us, it's continuous automated pen testing to start, using AI to replace consultants and contractors. But the longer term vision is bringing together cybersecurity and procurement to be able to understand how to characterize and mitigate these threats coming in from all these soft spots.
Thanks, Snehal. Great job. Thanks for being here. Next up would be Glenn Chisholm. Glenn's the co-founder and CEO of Obsidian. Hey, Glenn, hopefully you're on and you saw the pop-up poll earlier here today.
I am on, and thanks for having me. I haven't had any internet outages. I mean, I think that's the issue du jour for everyone is, I think it was Zuckerberg that actually had internet outage yesterday while trying to testify to Congress. So, you know, it's fun and games as we do things. So who's Obsidian? Obsidian is a company focused on cloud security. We look to bring detection and response to SaaS and infrastructure as a service and provide that rich protection, detection, response capability to these services. As people have migrated, you know, to the Salesforce's 365, G Suites, Workdays, Slacks, Zooms, the amount of information in those environments has become astronomical. the way in which people interact with those environments has become more dynamic. They've changed their usage patterns. With the change in employee usage patterns, with the change in sort of environment, you need to have a change in a security model. And Obsidian brings, like, what is the best way to secure SaaS? What is the best way to secure these platforms? You think about it from configuration, detection, response, and protection. That's what Obsidian seeks to bring to your organization.
And unique logos that you have out there, clients, industries, sweet spot, anything like that?
We've got some, we've done a bunch of work across technology. We've done a bunch of work across healthcare, education, manufacturing, retail. We've got some great references out there like Snowflake, who just went public last week. So that's always exciting. And so, we've had a lot of good traction, a lot of pickup, and due to sort of the change in the IT environment, we've actually managed to grow nicely during COVID.
Awesome. Great stuff. Congrats. Big challenges for you? Biggest challenge, Glenn?
I think the biggest challenge is just engaging with people that have the problem, but with COVID and the changes to talking to people, getting out there in front of people, having conversations, that's a complexity. And on top of that, with the pressures that are applied upon them as they try and perform their jobs, working from home, working remotely, with the additional demands that have hit their businesses, they understand they have these security problems. They understand they need to remediate them urgently, but they need to understand, who to go to, who to speak to, and how that remediation works.
Great, got it. Thanks, makes sense. Hey, back to Partha. When you think of your go-to-market, how are you managing in this environment of
Yeah, well, things have been interesting for sure. But the good news is we are in a fantastic cycle when it comes to cybersecurity. A lot of companies, if you look around CISOs and CIOs, are starting to ask the question on how do I disruption-proof my cybersecurity posture, my SOC, as it relates to us, and how do I move my SOC to the cloud? So it's been a fantastic learning experience for us as a company. And from a go-to-market perspective, we not only have our own sales and marketing engine, which goes after our customers. We work very closely with MSSPs, where we offer our SOC as a service as a platform for them in turn to turn around and offer their managed security services to their customers. So we have a fantastic opportunity from that perspective. So channel is really big for us. And the third aspect, which is very exciting for us, is we've signed a couple of very strategic agreements. One with Google, where we've signed a strategic Google co-sell agreement, where Google sellers get compensated and quota relief for including Cysiv as a part of their sales, as a part of positioning Cysiv on top of their Google customer base, and a very similar relationship with one of our shareholding companies, Trend Micro, one of the largest cybersecurity companies out there. So exciting opportunities, as you can imagine, between Google, Trend, our own channel, our own sales. We have lots of interesting ongoing conversations with many customers in many different verticals.
Hey, Partha, how can people get in touch with you to follow up, to learn more, get a what does it look like?
Well, absolutely. Cysiv.com is our website, and we have tons of content there, collaterals, which our customers and partners can download. There is a contact us page. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm all over, so it's easy to reach us, Hunter.
Awesome, great job. Snehal, same question to you. How do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm easy to find through LinkedIn. I've been part of the Hmg community for a while. We got the website horizon3.ai. You can go check it out. You can go run a pen test against your house, against your organization. It'll take you about 5 minutes to get up and running. And then if you want to think about buying Partha's product, you can run us against your existing SOC, and then go use them, run us again, and see how much better or worse they are at reacting to an attack. So it's a pretty good before and after there to go talk about. To build on Partha's point on go-to-market in a COVID environment, if you think about the early days of what made Splunk so successful, it was champion-based selling. Their ability to cultivate technical champions that loved their product and that became a hero and advocated and told all their friends. And I think that the days of selling software one steak dinner at a time is gone. And this idea of champion-based selling is critical regardless, but I think especially important now in the COVID world, paired up with the value that local security partners bring to the table in that last mile of relationship with existing prospects and sales. And so I think the successful company going forward has a blend of champion-based selling with a very strong partner program to close that last mile distance with opportunities.
Interesting. And what was the genesis of your creating Horizon 3? Where did you figure this thing out?
So you know, I've spent time on both sides of the house. My time as a CIO and sitting in the seats of any of you guys in the audience, my time at Splunk, being on the road, being a trusted advisor, sharing my experiences, and trying to sell defensive software. And then I took a break from industry and I joined the Department of Defense. And in there, I learned a lot about both offensive cyber as well as what it's like to have the most advanced nation states trying to hack you, and the fundamental advantages and disadvantages you have on the offensive side versus the defensive side. And what I realized is we are on this unsustainable trajectory, especially when you apply, and other nation states are doing this, AI-based attack means you're making 1,000 cyber maneuvers a second. And if you're going against a human defender that can make one decision or one maneuver every 10 minutes, the AI is going to win every time. So I see this future of AI-based offensive cyber, which is already there, completely changing the game and crushing human-based defenders. And so I saw this opportunity to apply that to improve our defenses, and that's what motivated me to come start the company.
Brilliant stuff. Good to see you, Snehal. Looking forward to the next time we're together. And then finally, back over to Glenn, of your space, big market for you that you're addressing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's as you move to SaaS and as you think about this really interesting space, as you think about all these problems, as you think about all this information, you realize that security needs to evolve. It needs to move with the business. It needs to be able to change the way it thinks and deals with threats, attackers, and its own internal sort of processes. So, SaaS brings this wonderful competitive advantage to the business. It brings this wonderful set of capabilities, this wonderful set of advantages, and this wonderful agility. Having SaaS-based security that takes the benefits of SaaS and brings it to the security team and says to the security team, well, you actually need to utilize these capabilities that the rest of the business is already well on that journey on. You need to utilize these capabilities. You need to take advantage of this. That's really where we are, and that's why I think this is such an important thing for people to be doing.
Awesome. Hey, Glenn, great to see you.
Great to see you.
Thanks for coming on the program, Glenn. Snehal, Partha, awesome job. Next up, we have Ed Amoroso, folks, to present challenges in the cyber market. Ed, you there?
Yes, Hunter, how you doing? How's everything?
It's always good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
So Ed, why are you considered this legend in our industry? I'm kind of curious. What's the genesis of that kind of framing?
Spectacular age and longevity, right? No, I think what happens
doing this for a while.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. When you work in telecom, you get an opportunity to work with every group. So it really is one of the few industries that touches literally everything in the context of cyber. There might be other businesses that touch a very large swath of sectors, but in telecom, you really you get inside the knickers of everyone. So I guess they have to be nice to me because I know all their secrets.
What do you think are the biggest challenges for CISOs?
Everything's too complicated right now. It's a spectacular complexity from top to bottom. And I really do think that that's a security vulnerability. You would normally think of it that way. You'd think, what are the vulnerabilities? And immediately people would be jumping to nation states and different types of threats. And I would say when everything's so complicated, that's the problem. And it is complicated. You deal with so many business leaders, and I'll bet 9 times out of 10, the core problems that they're dealing with is something business process or system is really complicated and they're having trouble unwinding it. So that's number one.
And then, so how do you unpack that?
Well, I don't know if it's a skill or a gift or a curse, but you really do have to come up with something that works for you. For me, I've always enjoyed unraveling things and seeing if they can't be redone. That's something that just, somebody might enjoy curling up with a cup of coffee and a nice book. For me, I like curling up with a screwed up business process and seeing if we can't redesign it and make it simpler. I love doing that. So you want to find somebody in your organization who has that very unusual interest. That's probably not going to meet many people at the next cocktail party who enjoy that. But that's the skill, like to look for ways to take steps out, to minimize the size of interfaces. That's something we talk about a lot in cybersecurity. You would refer that on a server as like server hardening or minimizing. I mean, turn a bunch of stuff off if you can. If you're like me, you walk around the house, and kids are always leaving all the lights on, turning them all off. It's like that, Hunter. It's very similar to that. Like if you don't need something, then best to turn it off or take it out. And when you do that, that's something that can't be hacked, and the more you do it, the more you start to recognize that you really are minimizing your attack surface and reducing risk.
That's a great strategy. That said, in the past 8 months, last time I checked, the attack surface grew exponentially, right?
Well, that's what keeps us all employed, right? I mean, there are these competing sort of pressures. The CIO feels pressure. Actually, CIO kind of feels the same sort of thing, like both up and down. Pressure to introduce new capability. Like you hear about these new capabilities, hey, we want these. But CIO is also cost bound. So there is that limiting factor. But for CISOs, the ones listening, my advice is that this rush to add, more and more and more and more capability is a temptation to be resisted. It's like, Hunter, if you and I walk into, let's say, that big monster RSA Expo, we walk in, you and I are standing there, we look out over Expo Hall B, and there's 3 of them. There's 500 vendors just in that one room, and there's 4 rooms or whatever. And we look at it, we look at each other and say, how do I make sense of this? And that's the whole point. You probably can't make sense of that. And if you even try, it's like trying to grab too many marbles from the cookie jar. So simplifying, finding some vendors that you trust, finding some themes that you understand, and staying inside your swim lane is a good thing to do, to not get too far ahead of your headlights. And we see that a lot at Tag Cyber in our practice. We'll get called in to look at a program, and the CISO will be very proud to show me and the team, look at all these amazing controls we have. And it takes 4 hours just to get through the list, much less to understand it. And a lot of times they don't have a relationship with the vendor, not entirely sure what the tool does. That's a recipe, Hunter, for disaster. That's that complexity is good for some venture capitalists somewhere, but not always so good to protect enterprise.
Add a little update on Tag Cyber. What are you guys doing?
Well, when I started the firm, I wanted to democratize research and advisory. I always felt like it should be somewhat of a calling, an unbiased calling, to provide guidance to people who are picking vendors. There ought to be some sort of, and I'm not saying shouldn't make money. We take money. I have a WeWork rent to pay, so charge. But I think that shouldn't be the reason you're doing it. There shouldn't be this spectacular top line you're trying to grow to. There ought to be a vocational aspect to this where you look and you see things that you sincerely believe have the right idea. And sometimes it's a big company like Microsoft, and you celebrate that, and they've got money to spend with analysts. Sometimes, Hunter, it's a couple of little entrepreneurs who don't have a dime, but who have an idea that deserves the light of day. We try to treat the two of them the same. So it makes for some unusual business planning and business models in terms of how you engage. But the end result should be that when we're describing or reporting on something, it comes from a place that's a little different than We just went around with the collection tray, and here are the people who gave us a bunch of money. So we're going to celebrate them. So that's how we do the research and advisory work.
Strong, great stuff, Ed. And then I've observed a lot of niche players in the context of cybersecurity, but it really takes an end-to-end holistic enterprise strategy to secure the complete enterprise, right?
Well, both. I mean, you just had a few companies that are doing some pretty interesting things, right? The guys who just gave a little update. It's okay to have some mice and some elephants in the same room, right? I mean, elephants cover the big stuff. I mean, I don't think there's anybody listening who doesn't have a master service agreement with Microsoft. How do you be in business and not, right? You're doing something with them. And they invest $1 billion a year in cybersecurity. I give them a hell of a lot of credit. That's a company I used to really have an issue with 20 years ago. I thought their software was largely unpatched and I wasn't happy, but I'm really impressed now. They're an elephant, but there's things that companies do around that, like some really creative ways to help human beings do a better job with phishing. And they dance around the elephant a little bit. And when there's something that's particularly good, then either they get sucked up into the big elephant or they keep dancing around. So there's it's kind of fun, but you don't want too much of either. You don't want to have just all these big, gigantic providers and you get any color you want as long as it's black, right? Like Henry Ford, or, a chaos, a cacophony of a zillion products where I have to stitch through them all. You like a balance of the big guys and the smaller ones. And when you're doing it right, you should have a pipeline of big, medium, and small companies. That way you get a little taste of innovation, as we just heard a little while ago, 3 very, very innovative pitches. So I like that. I think it's fun when there's a little innovation, keeps people on their toes.
Yeah, let's go to the people side of it. Career guidance or leadership guidance for a CISO looking to up-level their discussion with the CIO, the C-suite, the board?
Learn to communicate better. And that's both written and oral. And, you had some good guys on a little while ago. I know Steve knows his way around things. You had Matt on. There's some people who I was listening, gave some excellent advice. The common denominator is communication. It's kind of a bummer too, because most of us, myself included, we're gearheads who want to mess around with computers. I mean, Hunter, I liked messing around with networks and computers and software. That's why I joined Bell Labs. That's what I wanted to do. And next thing you know, I'm being asked to give presentations to big fancy groups of managers, and I didn't know how the hell to talk to them. So it's the same. You do need to communicate. But one thing I will say, here's one thing that I think is a little bit of a misconception I hear a lot, and that's this idea that the CISO is going to go in and have some leverage or free reign or some elbow room around how a message is delivered to like boards and executives. That's a pretty curated conversation. So in many cases, learning to communicate with horse blinders on and one arm tied behind your back is tough. It's still communication skill, but it's usually the case that when a CISO is talking to an executive team, somebody has been very careful to make sure that message is somewhat curated. I know people don't want to admit that, and you get an argument in the bar room, they just go, no, they let me talk. But then I get a little peek into their boardroom or their C-suite, and it's curated. They're not generally not letting CISOs just have free reign. That'll come. But if you're listening right now and you're thinking, hey, I want to advance my career, practice your public speaking, practice your writing skills, practice your presentation skills, and don't do more, do less. Try to do your pitch in 3 minutes, not 30 minutes. Try and do tell me about your job. You should be able to do that in a couple of things. Hey, I run identity access management, and we have the problem of dealing with identity risk, and I love it. There you go. There's your job. Not this big, long thing where you're talking for 20 minutes. That's something executives, you'll never get invited back. So be succinct, be clear, be accurate. You can practice it every day. And I guarantee you that if you do that, in weeks, months, years, whatever, you'll call Hunter and Ed and say, you know what, that was good advice. That really helped me out. It's not technical, it's communication.
Hey, Ed, that's really solid advice. I wouldn't be doing the summit or you justice. Just a comment or two on next week is pretty monumental in terms of the shifting winds of the country, and potentially some kind of a cyber event or influence on the results of the election. Any thoughts on that one?
Well, the first thing is that I think across the board, whether Democrats or Republicans, I've worked with all administrations, a little less with this one, but with all administrations, I don't think government has distinguished itself, particularly when it comes to managing cyber risk at the federal, state, and local level. It just hasn't. There's a few reasons. One is they can't pay enough, and that's a spectacular bummer. Like I wish there was a way that we could also almost subsidize or endow chairs or do something to get them paid more. But regardless of who wins, I think every citizen should be a little noisier with their representatives, whoever side of the aisle. Don't put up with them not knowing how cybersecurity works. Ask them what they've done in this area. Ask, call their staff and say, I'd like to know, what, our representative is doing in this area. And if you get back crickets, then, vote the bum out next time. The cause we advance here is not red versus blue, but rather a sane and reasonable and capable approach to cybersecurity. And I'm really seen too terribly much that's made me real happy. Certainly in the last 4 years, very little. Even before that, it wasn't like you were coming from a place where it was really quite strong. So our nation needs to do better, and we should all be squawking louder, I think.
Hey, Ed, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on the program. You're always shedding amazing light into an amazingly tough situation. I look forward to working more together with you in the future and next year.
Nice to see you, Hunter.
Great. Be good. Hey, another great summit here at HMG Strategy. Actually, our third of the week. Can you believe it? Women in Technology was Monday. Tuesday was San Diego. Here is a global Ciso summit based out of New York. A big shout out and thanks to our partners, Darktrace, Zoom, Duo, and Okta. Visit our marketplace, folks. The marketplace really is an amazing opportunity to learn more about HMG's partners and companies that we're collaborating and working with. As you saw today, Obsidian Software is in the marketplace, and Horizon 3 soon to be in the marketplace. And then go to our events page at HMG Strategy, folks. We probably have done about 100 events this year, about 80 of them digital. Upcoming events include Philadelphia next week, the 5th of November, Toronto the 10th, Portland the 13th, St. Louis the 17th, Silicon Valley the 19th, Seattle the 23rd, UK the 24th of November, Florida December 1st, New York Global Innovation December 3rd, and on and on. And then finally a global summit with SIM Connect, powered by HMG, December 15th. Really excited about where we are, folks, in the evolution of the company and the business model. More about HMG Ventures and how to get involved with our CXO fund in the future. If you're interested, please shoot me an email at hunterm@hmgstrategy.com. Look, take care, be safe. And again, it was great to be with you all. Hopefully you enjoyed the summit. Take care.